Hi, my name is Hannah, and I'm going to be taking you along today on a journey of turning a piece of thrifted fabric into an actual full skirt, using nothing but ordinary household supplies that I can almost guarantee you already have. Using no sewing machine, no fancy gadgets, just a needle and a thread and a couple basic materials, you can take nothing and turn it into something. All you need is creativity, a lot of patience, and the magic that is slow fashion. The fashion industry is a very significant contributor to global pollution. The rapid growth of this industry has nearly doubled the number of new garments that are produced every year over the last 2 decades. According to Green America, Americans generate 16 million tons of textile waste annually, and of that, 18.7% of this textile waste is incinerated, which undoubtedly produces large amounts of greenhouse gases. 62.5% is sent to landfill within the United States, and only 14.5% is even recycled. You can counteract some of these issues by not only buying from thrift stores, but repairing your own clothes that may be damaged or become worn to reduce waste and limit the emissions produced in creating new garments. So let's get started. My plan included focusing on creating a garment entirely out of reused, repurposed household materials, aligning this project with the principles of slow fashion, emphasizing reducing waste, extending the life cycle of textiles, and making mindful purchasing decisions. Step 1 is finding fabric. I headed to a few local thrift stores to hunt for big pieces of fabric, like bed sheets, curtains, anything with a decent amount of fabric that can be deconstructed or reconstructed into something entirely new. By choosing to go to a thrift store and opting for secondhand materials, I'm not only saving money, but also supporting a more circular economy where products are reused or recycled, remade, rather than simply disposed of. For this project, we are going to need plain paper, a standard 12-inch ruler, scissors, a pencil, standard sewing thread that matches your fabric, and sewing needles. I have these sewing clips, however, any sort of chip clip or similar clip will do. Or if you have sewing pins, that works as well. And this is Otto. He's my tape dispenser. He's the most essential. And of course, our fabric. This shiny, satiny fabric is beautiful, and I am so lucky that I found something like this at the thrift store. It's about 2 meters of fabric, and it costs $5.99. Using my ruler and some thin strips of paper, I created my own measuring tape, putting notches every inch. I start off by measuring my waist. I also measure from my waist point downwards to determine the length of my skirt as well. Now, this is the beginning of how I made my skirt pattern. However, I will revise this in a moment as I completely mess up and forget what kind of skirt I am making. So here I'm marking out the radius of a circle. I start off by making a full circle skirt, but soon discovered that I don't have enough fabric to actually make a full circle skirt. And I'm also planning on making a wrap skirt. So actually needs to wrap around my waist 1.5 times and not just one complete time. I try to minimize the amount of paper that I'm using to create this by lining up the paper, keeping in mind how big I know that this outer diameter of the circle will be. I cut out my big circle and lay it out on the fabric, where I then make the realization that I have created a full circle skirt and not a wrapped skirt pattern piece. This here is the Mood Circle Skirt Calculator. I selected inches and how long approximately I want the skirt to be. Inputted that I don't want a full circle skirt because I don't have enough fabric to wrap around, so I opted for half circle skirt, in which case I'll need to do 1.5 of. I select my waist measurement and receive my results for the waist radius and also what size fabric I would need to begin this project. And after taping back on the pieces that I had just cut off, re-measured out the new waistline, which is much larger as I'm using less fabric to wrap around my waist. My fabric was extremely wrinkly, so I whipped out the iron. Now that I'm happy with my circle skirt pattern, I lay it out on the fabric, which is currently folded in half lengthwise, and just using a pencil, as this is light colored fabric, I trace out 3 of these pattern pieces, all of which one of the edges is on the fold. And then I cut out my 3 skirt panels. After these pieces are cut out, I merely clipped the seams together with the good side or shiny side facing together. Now to hand sewing. This is a very time-consuming, tedious process that, had I had access to a sewing machine, would take me likely less than half the time to finish this project, although it became quite a meditative process, doing thousands of tiny back stitches to sew the seams together and to sew the hems. The smaller and closer together your stitches are, the stronger that your seam will hold, and also the cleaner that your sewing will likely look. After the 3 pieces have been joined together, I folded over the bottom hem, not once but twice, to fully encapsulate the raw edge of the fabric, ensuring that it won't fray, and ironed it flat before, once again, backstitching along the hem. This very slow and seemingly very tedious and time-consuming process demonstrates not only how clothing used to be made before the era of machinery, but also emphasizes that garments take time and effort and craftsmanship that fast fashion often undermines, instead prioritizing speed, profit, and quantity. Any fabric scraps that I generate during this process that are not used in the creation of this garment will be saved for future projects, repurposed into smaller items like hair accessories, or even cut into small pieces to use as stuffing for something like a pillow, reinforcing more of a zero waste approach. Now that the main skirt is essentially constructed, we are going to be making the waistband, which will be about twice as long as the actual skirt itself, in order to create an additional tie to wrap around and tie together in the front. These fabric strips are folded lengthwise and stitched with the shiny side inwards, creating a tube. This tube is then turned inside out, leaving the raw fabric edges on the inside and no longer visible. The top hem is folded over twice, again encapsulating the raw edge on the inside and stitched into place. I used a red thread basting stitch merely to hold on the waistband, and so that it stayed perfectly lined up and I didn't have to use a million clips or pins to hold it in place as I sewed. Because the waistband is going to be supporting the skirt and will need to take some wear and tear of being tied and untied, I not only sewed it once but twice along the length of the top hem of the skirt. So I hope the next time you look at a bed sheet, old curtains, or discarded fabric, that instead of seeing scrap or nothing, that maybe you could imagine it as possibly something else. The whole point of slow fashion is to break out of that buy, wear, toss type of cycle that nearly all of us are a part of, including myself, and appreciate clothes for what they truly are, something that can be meaningful, that takes time and care to make. And even if sewing isn't your thing, even choosing something that is secondhand, taking the time to repair a piece of clothing that you love, or just being a little more mindful when you shop can make a big difference. So I hope I've inspired you to possibly consider turning nothing into something. Thanks for watching.